stop scrolling because what I'm about to show you might be sitting in a jar in your house right now. 2 coins. One American, one British. Both look completely ordinary. But collectors around the world are actively hunting for these exact years. Stick with me till the end, because I'm going to show you exactly what to look for. Let's start with this one. A 1958 Lincoln wheat penny. This is the last year the wheat design was ever made. In 1959, the U.S. Mint switched to the Lincoln Memorial on the back, so 1958 is the final year of an entire era. Now, most 1958 pennies are only worth a few cents. Millions were made. But here's the twist. There's a rare version called the 1958 doubled die obverse. On that variety, the lettering on the front, especially, "Liberty and in God we trust," appears doubled when you look closely. Only a couple of these have ever been confirmed, and one sold at auction for over $300,000. So before you toss a 1958 penny in a jar, grab a magnifying glass and look at 3 things: the doubling on the lettering, the sharpness of Lincoln's portrait, and the overall color. A coin like this with strong original luster, like the one you're seeing now, is already a nice find even, without the doubling error. A regular 1958 wheat penny in decent condition can fetch anywhere from 5 cents to a few dollars, but in top uncirculated condition like this piece, it can go for $20, $50, even $100 depending on the grade. And if it's that double die variety, you could be holding a 6-figure coin. This is a 70 under New Pence coin, one of the very first decimal coins issued in the UK after Britain switched from pounds, shillings, and pence to the decimal system in 1971. Like 10,340, the rare variety. Here's what makes some of these special. Early 2p coins struck between 1971 and 1981 were made with a different metal composition than later ones, but the real prize is a rare minting error where the words New Pence were mistakenly left on coins struck after 1982 when they should have said 2 pence. Some of those error coins have sold for over £1,000. Now this particular coin is a standard 1971 issue, the first year of decimal 2p coins. It's not the ultra-rare error type, but first-year coins in strong condition, like this one with clear detail on the Prince of Wales feathers, are still popular with collectors building date sets. Circulated 1971 2p is usually just face value, but in high-grade, uncirculated sharp strike, original color, it can sell for £3 to £15. And if you ever come across one with the New Pence error from the wrong decade, that's the one to set aside immediately. So there you have it. 2 coins, 2 countries, both hiding potential value in plain sight. The lesson here? Always check your change before you spend it. If you found this useful, drop a comment telling me what coins you've got lying around. Hit follow for more coin hunting tips, and I'll see you in the next one. The coin shown here is a 1958 Lincoln wheat cent. On the front is Abraham Lincoln. Above his portrait is the famous phrase, "In God we trust." To the left is liberty. To the right is the date, 1958. Turn it over and the design changes completely. Instead of a modern-looking denomination arrangement, we see 2 wheat ears surrounding the words, 1 cent, United States of America. And above that is the familiar phrase, E pluribus unum. Those wheat ears are exactly why collectors call this series the wheat cent or wheat penny. But 1958 is especially interesting because it was near the end of the series. The Lincoln cent was introduced in 1909. For decades, the reverse displayed the 2 wheat ears. Generation after generation used these coins. Children found them in pockets. Families placed them into jars. Workers received them as change. Stores accepted them every day. And then after nearly 50 years, the wheat reverse disappeared. In 1959, the United States Mint introduced a new reverse featuring the Lincoln Memorial. That means the 1958 cent shown here belongs to the final year of regular Lincoln wheat cent production. Think about that. This small coin was made at the end of an era. It is one of the last ordinary circulation coins to carry the original wheat reverse. That historical connection is one reason collectors continue to appreciate it. The portrait on the obverse was designed by Victor David Brenner. Abraham Lincoln faces right. The design became one of the most recognizable coin portraits in American history. Lincoln's presence on the cent was significant. The coin was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was also the first regular U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical person. That made the Lincoln cent revolutionary for American coinage. And by 1958, that design had already been in circulation for almost 50 years. Look carefully at the date. This was a period of major change in the United States. The country was moving deeper into the modern post-war era. Cars were becoming increasingly common. Television was becoming a major part of American life. Rock and roll was transforming popular culture. Technology was developing rapidly, and ordinary people were still carrying these small, bronze-colored cents in their pockets. That is what makes old coins fascinating. They are tiny objects that survived from another world. A standard 1958 Lincoln cent was made primarily of copper, with the traditional bronze composition used for wheat cents of this era. That is different from many modern U.S. cents, which use a copper-plated zinc composition. The copper content gives these old cents their familiar brown or reddish appearance. Over time, the surface can change. A freshly struck coin can have bright reddish color. Imagine two 1958 cents. Both are uncirculated. Both have sharp details, but one retains much of its original bright red color. The other has become mostly brown. A collector may value them differently. That is because color preservation can be an important part of Lincoln cent collecting. But be careful. A coin that has been artificially brightened or chemically cleaned is not the same as a naturally preserved red cent. Artificially changing a coin's surface can reduce its desirability. So once again, never clean your old coins. The mint mark. Now look beneath the date. This is one of the most important places to inspect on a 1958 Lincoln cent. If there is a small D beneath the date, the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. If there is no mint mark, that indicates the Philadelphia Mint for this era. The mint mark can help identify the exact issue. The coin shown in the photograph appears to have no obvious mint mark, so it appears consistent with a Philadelphia issue, but collectors should always inspect the coin directly under good magnification before making a final attribution. This is a great example of why photographs can sometimes be misleading. Lighting can hide tiny details. Surface wear can make letters disappear, and reflections can make marks appear where none actually exist. Now we come to the biggest question. Is a 1958 wheat penny rare? The ordinary 1958 Lincoln cent is not automatically a rare coin. Millions were produced, so simply finding the date 1958 does not mean you have discovered a fortune. However, collectors may pay more for examples with excellent condition, strong original color, varieties, errors, or other desirable characteristics. And because 1958 was the final year of the wheat reverse, the coin has an important place in the series. That makes it collectible even when the individual example is not rare. Whenever someone hears "58 Lincoln cent," another topic often appears: double dies. There are documented varieties associated with Lincoln cents, and collectors often examine the lettering and date for evidence of doubling. But this is exactly where caution is necessary. A true double die is a specific variety created during die production. It is not simply a coin with a blurry letter. It is not damage. It is not machine doubling. And it is not every coin where the edge of a letter appears slightly wider. If you think your 1958 cent has doubling, use a magnifying glass and compare it with verified reference examples. Do not assume every unusual-looking letter is a rare doubled die. Machine doubling is one of the most common things beginners mistake for a valuable double die. It can make part of a design appear flattened or shifted, but it is created by movement. During the striking process, rather, than the same kind of double die variety collectors seek. The visual difference can be subtle. That is why serious collectors use comparison photographs and specialized references. If your coin appears doubled, don't immediately list it online for a huge price. The coin in the photograph has visible circulation and surface wear. The high points of Lincoln's portrait show evidence of use. The reverse also shows signs that the coin spent time in circulation. That is perfectly normal. Remember, this coin was made to be spent. It wasn't created to sit in a protective holder for 60 years. It may have passed through many hands before ending up in the photograph. That history is part of its charm. But from a market perspective, heavy circulation generally means the coin won't command the same premium as a superb uncirculated example. There are several things collectors look for. The first is condition. The second is original color. The third is the mint mark and exact issue. The fourth is a genuine variety. The fifth is a genuine mint error. And the sixth is collector demand. If a coin has all of these characteristics in an exceptional combination, its value can be much higher than face value. But an ordinary circulated coin remains an ordinary circulated coin. You may search online and see a 1958 penny listed for hundreds or thousands of dollars. But a listing price is not the same as a completed sale. Anyone can list a coin for almost any amount. The important question is, did someone actually pay that price? Collectors should focus on documented auction results and reliable price guides. And even then, remember that two coins can sell for different prices because of differences in grade, color, variety, certification, and buyer demand. So if you own a 1958 penny, don't judge its value by the highest number you find online. Judge it by the exact characteristics of your coin. Let's take another look at the reverse. Those two wheat ears are more than decoration. They became the defining symbol of the entire Lincoln wheat cent series. For almost 50 years, people saw those wheat ears on their pennies. Then in 1959, the design disappeared. The Lincoln Memorial took its place. That means the 1958 cent is effectively one of the final regular chapters of the wheat penny era. For collectors, that gives the coin an emotional quality. Imagine someone receiving this exact type of coin in 1958. Maybe they were buying groceries. Maybe they bought a newspaper. Maybe they received it from a gas station. Maybe a child found it on the ground. Nobody could have known that decades later people would be collecting these coins and studying their varieties. The coin was simply money, but time changed its role. It went from currency to historical object. That transformation happens to millions of coins, and sometimes we only realize it when we find them years later. If you have one, start with the obverse. Look at the date. Look beneath the date for the mint mark. Check the lettering. Examine Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, and coat. Look at the rim, then turn it over. Study the wheat ears. Check the lettering. Look around 1 cent. Look at United States of America. Then inspect E pluribus unum. Use a magnifying glass. Good lighting is extremely important. A flashlight positioned at a low angle can sometimes reveal details that normal room lighting hides. But remember that shadows can also create false impressions. Check for damage. Look for scratches. Look for gouges. Look for discoloration. Look for signs of cleaning. Look for dents. Look at the rim. If a coin has been damaged after leaving the mint, that usually does not make it a valuable mint error. This is why beginners should learn the difference between error and damage. A genuine mint error is part of the coin's manufacturing story. Post-mint damage is part of the coin's life after production. Collectors generally treat those two things very differently. An old copper coin with an original surface can be beautiful even if it is dark. Some people see brown color and think the coin is dirty, but natural toning is not necessarily dirt. The surface may have changed chemically over decades. That is normal for copper. Trying to restore the coin to a bright orange appearance can actually make it less desirable. So once again, if you discover a 1958 wheat cent, do not polish it, do not scrub it, do not use chemicals. Keep the coin in its original condition while you investigate it. Absolutely. Even if your 1958 cent is not rare, it is worth keeping if you enjoy collecting historical coins. It represents the final year of the wheat reverse. It carries Lincoln's portrait. It comes from a fascinating period in American history, and it can be an excellent starting point for a collection. Imagine building a collection of Lincoln wheat cents from 1909 through 1958. You would be holding almost half a century of American history in the palm of your hand. You would see changes in minting, design, production, and condition. That is what makes coin collecting so rewarding. Final value reality check. So how much is a 1958 Lincoln wheat cent worth? A normal circulated example is generally not a life-changing treasure. Its value is usually modest and depends on the exact issue and condition. But better quality examples can bring more. High-grade coins with attractive original color can be especially desirable. Certified examples can also command premiums when the grade is strong. And genuine varieties or errors can be in a different category entirely. The key is not to ask only, what year is this? Ask, what exact coin is this? What condition is it in? Does it have a mint mark? Does it have a recognized variety? Does it have a genuine mint error? Those questions lead to a much more accurate valuation. Final story. The 1958 Lincoln wheat cent may look small. It may look worn. It may look ordinary. But think about what it represents. It is from the final year of a design that had been used since 1909. It carries the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. It was made during an important period in American history, and it was one of the last regular cents to carry the famous wheat ears. 1 year later, the reverse changed. The wheat penny era was over, but these coins survived. They stayed in collections. They remained in old jars. They were forgotten in drawers. And decades later, people began searching for them again. That is why you should never underestimate an old coin. It does not have to be worth thousands of dollars to be worth examining. So the next time you find a brown penny dated 1958, don't throw it into a pile of ordinary change. Turn it over. Look at the wheat ears. Check the mint mark. Study the date. Inspect the condition. Look for unusual details, and most importantly, don't clean it before you know what you have. Because 1958 was not just another year for the Lincoln cent. It was the final year of the regular wheat reverse, and that makes this little coin one of the final survivors of an American coinage era that lasted nearly half a century. Maybe your coin is a normal circulated example. Maybe it is an attractive uncirculated piece. Maybe it has an interesting variety. Maybe it has a genuine error. Whatever the case, you won't know until you look closely. The coin shown here is a British 2 pence dated 1971. On one side we see the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, while the reverse carries the famous Welsh Plumes design. The first thing that makes this coin special is not necessarily its market value. It is its historical importance. 1971 was the year Britain officially decimalized its currency. Before decimalization, British money operated under the old pounds, shillings and pence system. 1 pound was divided into 20 shillings, and each shilling was divided into 12 old pence. Then came decimalization. The new system divided 1 pound into 100 new pence. The 2 pence coin became one of the denominations people had to learn to recognize. That means a 1971 2p is more than just a dated piece of metal. It represents the beginning of a completely new monetary era, the famous Welsh Plumes. Turn the coin over and the design immediately catches your attention. At the center are 3 feathers rising from a coronet. Around the design is the denomination and the word pence. This is the Welsh Plumes design, a reverse that became strongly associated with the British 2 pence denomination. The small details are impressive when you look at them closely. You can see the feathers. You can see the coronet. You can see the ribbons. And on the ribbons appears the motto Ich dien, meaning I serve. For a coin that was designed for everyday spending, there is a surprising amount of history and symbolism packed into such a small surface. The Queen's portrait. Now turn the coin to the other side. We see the young Queen Elizabeth II facing right. The portrait was created by artist Arnold Machine and became one of the most recognizable images on British decimal coinage. The inscription around the portrait identifies the monarch and her titles. When this coin entered circulation in 1971, Britain was beginning an enormous change. People had to learn new denominations. Shops had to change their pricing. Banks had to prepare. Cash registers had to be modified. And millions of people had to get used to a completely new way of thinking about everyday money. Imagine receiving this coin as change in 1971. For someone today, it might look like an ordinary old coin. For someone living through decimalization, it was part of a major national transition. The year 1971 is one of the biggest clues when examining British decimal coins. Decimal Day took place on 15 February 1971. That date became known as Decimal Day. Overnight, the familiar old currency system was replaced for everyday transactions by decimal currency. The transition was enormous. People had spent their entire lives thinking in pounds, shillings, and old pence. Suddenly, there were new coins with new values. The 2 pence was one of those coins. That makes the 1971 date historically significant, even if the individual coin is not rare. And this is an important lesson for anyone interested in coin collecting. Historical importance and monetary rarity are not always the same thing. A coin can be historically fascinating without being worth a fortune. This is where we need to separate fact from internet hype. A normal circulated 1971 2 pence is not automatically worth hundreds or thousands, simply because it says 1971. Large numbers of these coins were produced. Many survived. Some are still found in collections and old coin jars, so if you have one with heavy circulation marks, scratches and wear, its value may be relatively modest, but collectors still pay attention to certain examples. Condition can make a major difference. Proof examples can be different. Unusual varieties can be different. Genuine mint errors can be different. And coins with exceptional preservation can attract much more interest than ordinary circulated pieces. That is why you should inspect the coin before deciding what it is worth. Look closely at the coin shown in the video. The surface has visible wear. There are marks from circulation. The high points of the design show signs of use. That tells us the coin has lived a life. Perhaps it spent years in pockets. Perhaps it was dropped. Perhaps it passed through hundreds of transactions. That is exactly what these coins were designed to do. But imagine finding a 1971 2 pence that looks almost untouched. The design is sharp. The original surface is still present. The lettering is crisp. The edge is clean. There are very few marks. That coin deserves a completely different level of attention. This is why collectors use grading systems. The difference between a heavily circulated coin and a nearly perfect example can be significant. If you discover a 1971 2p, please do not immediately try to make it shiny. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. Old coins naturally develop changes in color and surface appearance. Bronze coins can darken over time. They can develop patina. They can show different shades depending on how they were stored. A collector may prefer an original surface over a freshly polished surface. Cleaning can create scratches that were not there before. It can remove part of the original surface. And once a coin has been harshly cleaned, you generally cannot reverse the damage. So if you think your 1971 2 pence might be collectible, leave it alone. Photograph it. Identify it. Study it. Then decide what to do. Another interesting thing about early British decimal 2p coins is their composition. The original decimal 2 pence pieces were made from bronze. That gives them the familiar copper-colored appearance. For collectors, weight and dimensions can help confirm whether a coin matches the expected specifications. A small digital scale can be useful. But remember that circulated coins can lose tiny amounts of material through wear, and measuring equipment can also have inaccuracies. So weight should be used as one piece of evidence rather than the only test. If your coin's weight is dramatically different from the expected specification, that is when you may want to investigate further. Now let's discuss one of the most exciting subjects in coin collecting: mint errors. A genuine mint error occurs during the manufacturing process. It can happen because of problems involving dies, planches, striking, alignment, or other parts of production. Examples can include major off-center strikes, clipped planches, double strikes, die breaks, and other unusual production mistakes. But here is the important part. Not every strange-looking coin is an error. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent is not automatically an error. A bent coin is not automatically an error. Damage caused after the coin left the mint is generally not considered a valuable mint error. So if you see something unusual on your 1971 2p, compare it carefully with known examples before, assuming you have discovered something rare. Collectors sometimes concentrate so much on the front and back of a coin that they forget the edge. Don't make that mistake. Turn the coin sideways. Examine the edge. Look for unusual marks, damage, or anything that appears inconsistent with a normal example. The edge can sometimes provide useful clues about how a coin was produced or whether it has been damaged after leaving the mint. A coin that has been heavily damaged can look very strange, but a genuine manufacturing anomaly may have characteristics that are difficult to reproduce accidentally. Let's step back from the coin for a moment. Imagine Britain in early 1971. People were preparing for Decimal Day. New coins were entering circulation. Banks were preparing the public. Stores were changing prices. Advertisements explained how the new currency worked. People had to learn that £1 would now equal 100 new pence. The old system was disappearing. The new decimal coins were not merely pieces of metal. They were tools of communication. Their designs had to be recognizable. People needed to identify different values quickly. The 2 pence was part of that new visual language. And that's why holding a 1971 2p today can feel like holding a tiny piece of that transition. You may have seen online videos claiming that ordinary old coins are worth unbelievable amounts. Be careful. A normal 1971 2 pence should not automatically be described as a fortune. There may be rare examples, unusual varieties, or exceptional coins that command stronger prices, but a normal circulated example is a completely different category. The responsible way to discuss coin values is to look at actual market evidence. Auction results. Recognize catalogs. Condition. Authenticity. Variety attribution. And collector demand. If someone tells you that every 1971 2p is worth thousands, ask them one simple question. Which exact variety and what documented sale proves it? That question can save you from a lot of misinformation. If you have a 1971 2p, start with the basics. Check the date. Check the portrait. Check the Welsh Plumes. Check the lettering. Look closely at the rim. Inspect the edge. Use magnification. Look for obvious doubling or unusual die characteristics. Check the condition. If you have an accurate scale, check the weight. And compare your coin with reputable reference photographs. Do not rush. The best coin discoveries often happen when someone notices a tiny detail that other people ignored. There is another type of value that does not appear in price guides. Imagine someone bought something in 1971 and received this coin as change. Maybe they placed it in a drawer. Years passed. They moved house. The coin remained. Eventually it was inherited. Now decades later someone discovers it. The coin may not be worth a fortune, but it has survived more than 50 years. It has crossed generations. That alone can make it special. Coin collecting is not only about money. So what is a normal 1971 2 pence worth? For a typical circulated example, don't expect an enormous amount simply because of the date. The real opportunity comes from identifying exceptional examples. A high-grade specimen may be more desirable. A proof coin may be more desirable. A genuine mint error may be significantly more interesting. A recognized variety can also have collector demand. But the exact value depends on the individual coin. The photographs in this video show a circulated example. So the safest approach is to treat it as a historical and collectible piece rather than automatically assuming a huge valuation. The 1971 British 2 pence is one of those coins that proves something important. Sometimes the story behind a coin is more fascinating than the number printed on it. This tiny piece of bronze entered circulation during one of the biggest changes in British monetary history. It carried the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. It displayed the Welsh Plumes, and it became part of everyday life during Britain's transition to decimal currency. So if you find one today, don't just look at it and say, "It's only 2 pence." Look at the date. Look at the details. Think about where it has been. Think about how many people may have held it, and then ask whether your particular example has something unusual that makes it stand out. Because sometimes the real treasure is not simply what the coin can sell for. Sometimes the treasure is the story it has carried for more than half a century. The 1971 British 2 pence is one of those coins that proves something important. Sometimes the story behind a coin is more fascinating than the number printed on it. This tiny piece of bronze entered circulation during one of the biggest changes in British monetary history. It carried the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. It displayed the Welsh Plumes, and it became part of everyday life during Britain's transition to decimal currency. So if you find one today, don't just look at it and say, "It's only 2 pence." Look at the date. Look at the details. Think about where it has been. Think about how many people may have held it, and then ask whether your particular example has something unusual that makes it stand out. Because sometimes the real treasure is not simply what the coin can sell for. Sometimes the treasure is the story it has carried for more than half a century.